that the organizers have adopted. And the first one is, we've already broken it, is please hold your applause or other indications of approval or disapproval until the end, and then you'll have an opportunity at the conclusion of the program to demonstrate your appreciation for all of the candidates. That way we'll maximize the amount of time available for the candidates to answer questions. They are allowed up to 3 minutes to answer each question. And Lisa Schaff is going to be holding up time cues, including countdowns, to show them how much time they have left. In addition, each candidate is entitled to 3 follow-ups, which are up to 1 minute to follow up on an answer that any of the other candidates has given. Each candidate is going to be allowed to make an opening statement, and I think that is pretty much it. If anyone is willing to abide by the ground rules, you're certainly welcome to stay. If you're not willing to abide by the ground rules, you are excused. So we will start with the candidates' opening statements, and we will start with Ms. McRae.
Is this on? I think I'd rather hold it. And do you want me to stand up or stay seated?
It's up to you, however you feel comfortable.
But hold the microphone as close as possible.
Okay, I'll stand so everyone can see me. My name is Regina McCree. I'm an attorney at Owens McCree and Len Scott. I joined the community library. Okay, I'll act like I'm going to eat it.
Don't use your library voice.
I joined the Community Library Network Board of Trustees back in September 2016. I didn't join the board through an election. They had an opening. And the reason I learned that they had an opening is because I'm a library user. I use the library. I love the library. When I first got my driver's license, I drove myself to my local public library. That's the first place I wanted to go. The starting place for me as a trustee is the Idaho Code. Idaho Code has 3 very important provisions that are applicable to all libraries in Idaho. The first one is that they're to be open and available to all people of Idaho. All means all, including populations or groups with which you may not agree or you may not agree. Secondly, the library services have to be provided by trained and qualified staff. Our staff are hardworking Idahoans. They live in this community just like you. They don't deserve to be vilified, and they're doing a good job. Third, per Idaho Code, our services must meet the standards that are established by the Idaho Commission for Libraries. Idaho Commission for Libraries is not the American Library Association. It's a completely different organization. The American Library Association is a professional organization for librarians, and so saying that our librarians follow the ALA would be the same thing as telling an attorney like myself that I do everything that the American Bar Association says to do, and that's obviously not true. The Idaho Commission for Libraries sets the foundational and mission of libraries, with which I agree, and they have adopted some ALA policies, but not all. And so for those of you that are here and that very much care about libraries, if you would like to see some statewide standards adopted and applied in our local libraries, I would encourage you to reach out to the Idaho Commission for Libraries. But I'm here because I believe in the mission and the purpose of libraries, and I believe they're worth fighting for. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McRae. Next we have Tom Hanley.
Morning, everyone. I have my statement written up here. Let's see if I can get through 33 minutes worth. My name is Tom Hanley. I am running for the Community Library Board of Trustees position. I'd like to thank the American Legion for use of the hall, Kootenai County League of Women Voters for hosting the event, as well as the Honorable Patrick Costello for being the moderator. I was happily retired for 4 years until July of last year, and that's when I was invited to a luncheon by my state representative. And at that luncheon, there was a presentation given by a group entitled Clean Books for Kids. It was headed up by Marietta Cochran. And it was at that particular presentation that I learned about the hundreds of books containing obsolete material in minors areas of the library. I thought to myself, for a few months after that July encounter, someone's got to do something about this. This is wrong. And so after a little bit of prayer and discussing it with my wife, I decided, well, why not me? Let me give it a try out there. I've never been out, I've never run for office before, but someone's got to clean up this taxpayer-funded filth in the library. So while parents may be ultimately responsible for what goes on with their children, the Board of Trustees is also responsible for what's in those libraries, and endangering children is not one of their responsibilities. So over the last 18 months, the board has continuously heard from different people in the public, in writing and during the public comment portion of the monthly meetings, and the board seemed to sit there rather stone-faced with the appearance that they weren't going to do much about it. And they repeatedly denied that these books exist in the library, when in fact they are there. So we've had numerous incumbents. Let's see. I wouldn't be running today, let's put it that way, if the incumbents had done their job, in my opinion, and gotten those books out of the library and been responsive to the voters. So I am a retired military officer. I completed a 30-year career. That was followed by 11 years at a large local nonprofit organization. And my main categories of my employment were logistics and supply management, financial management. I was HR director at one point, and I was also a facilities and fleet manager. The 3 goals I have in mind for the job when I get in there is child safety, number 1. Number 2 is fiscal responsibility. And finally, transparency. Thank you for coming out today.
Once again, please keep the applause till the end if you would. The next candidate is Judy Meyer.
Thank you, and good morning. I think we ought to take a minute to realize that we're here because the American Legion and what they represent for us. And I would like to use that idea to say they protect our country and work for us, and we board members want to do the same sort of thing. My goal is to protect our libraries. Our wonderful library system is filled with different ideas, open to all to explore, learn, and understand. There's a role for core content of the library to be rock solid. Other topics are trendy: popular novels, political topics of the day, cultural priorities. Steering the library ship through the icebergs of popular passion is complex and difficult. Over a third of the library circulation is kids' materials. Your library has sections for kids' books, 0 to 11, teen books, 12 to 15, and adults. Parents must choose the age range for their children's library card. There are voices in this election shouting to remove books they don't like. Others feel their religious preferences should dominate. In some places, their claims are overstated or not true. Some don't like LGBTQ books, others want them. I believe we let the users choose. If you don't like a book, don't read it. Don't check it out. But you shouldn't dictate that someone else cannot read it. The trustee's role is to listen, to consider, and work collaboratively to find the right mix. I have a long history of dealing fairly with controversy. I'd like to be your library trustee.
Tim Plass is the final candidate.
And just so a correction, it's Plass, like dental floss.
Plass.
Remember that? Yeah. So yes, I'm Tim Plass. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event and giving us a chance to discuss the issues. And thanks to all the audience for attending. I've been a resident of Kootenai County for 26 years. I've got a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the University of California, a master's in electrical engineering from Stanford, and I recently retired after 43 years, over 43 years as an electrical engineer. And some of it was locally here, or quite a bit was locally here with Hewlett-Packard, Agilent, and some other companies. In 2009, I started my own company, a wireless internet company, VelociMax Wireless, and from the beginning I made it family-safe internet, which drew a lot of customers because they wanted the protection of not a wide open internet. It's, to my knowledge, it's the first and only such family-safe internet provider in Idaho. It was successful and popular, and I sold it in 2017. And I did have Intermax as a competitor, wherever Steve is. I'm running because I am now a grandfather of 9 grandchildren, and I am very, very concerned for all the children in this county. I'm also running because a group of about 20 moms formed, very dedicated moms that formed Clean Books for Kids organization, and they got alarmed 2 years ago, and over the last 2 years, they've documented books that are in the library that are seen. The question I have is, why are the books here? Who are responsible for adding the books? And why haven't they been removed when this was brought to their attention? I want to restore common sense library policies that align with community values. This is not about religion, separation of church of state, or even about the First Amendment. I just want to follow Idaho code. I want to restore classics, books for minors, and I want libraries that provide books and services that people want. That's why I'm running.
Mispronouncing your name. Before I get to the first question, I wanted to recognize one of the Community Library Network's employees, Denise Nushar. Are you here, Denise? She is an assistant librarian here at Post Falls Library, and she recently was awarded a National Library Award by the American Library Association, which is quite a credit to her, the Post Falls Library, and the Community Library Network. So, the first question is addressed to Ms. McCrae and Mr. Hanley. Could you please describe your purpose and goals that motivate you to seek the position of CLN trustee? And start with Ms. McCrae.
Sure, and it's kind of difficult to have been the opening person, the opening act to go. So in 2022, over the entirety of the year of 2022, we had 4 book challenges filed. And as an attorney, I respect policies that are already in place, and when these concerns were being raised, my response was fill out the book's request for reconsideration. And in 2022, the district had 4. That's how many we received. In the early 2023, I probably heard the exact same presentation that Mr. Hanley here just referenced regarding a concern that a 5-year-old could unknowingly for their parents check out a book that was available and categorized as adult. The very next month, in February, the legislature introduced House Bill, it was either 139 or 314, indicating that creating a library bounty and giving people the ability to bring a private cause of action and sue their libraries for $10,000. One of the affirmative defenses provided in that proposed legislation was that if the library had taken reasonable steps to restrict access to minors, then the library would would likely prevail in the action. So I know I'm answering this question in a rather roundabout way, but those two things combined that had not previously been brought to our attention at a board meeting, the concern, which I think was rather improbable, that a 5-year-old would use the CIN system to check out a book out of Washington that their parent would not approve of, combined with the legislature's belief that our libraries contain harmful materials. The board worked with our consultant who we had hired to replace our library director, who left us after 18 months. She was only in the position for 18 months, helped us craft a new policy that I believe addresses exactly the concerns that were being raised by Clean Books for Kids in January and the legislature's concerns about restricting access to potentially harmful material to minors. So the library card for minors policy was adopted and passed. And I believe that that alleviates much of the concerns, if not all of the concerns that have been raised by our opponents, but it does not seem to have done the job. So I'm here because we've done the best thing with this minor cards for minors policy. And if it's not, and the library's future, I believe, is dependent on the outcome of this election. And it's important to me that we have a stable, vibrant, continuing, healthy library system, such as that what we have in place right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Hold your applause, Mr. Hanley.
If you don't mind, Your Honor, would you repeat the question?
Yes. Describe your purpose and goals that motivate you to seek the position of CLA trustee.
Well, as I stated in my opening, my main goal, my main reason, my purpose for running is because of the appalling books in the children's area, in the minors area of the library. We're paying for those books. We're putting those in people's hands. It's kind of like we call it a sort of a minefield out there. When a parent lets their child loose, they don't know what's in those shelves out there, really. And these are like little pieces of candy, not the poison M&Ms, but candy in the hands of the children out there available to them. And so I want to get those books out of the minors areas of the library. They don't belong in there, and we're paying for those. I feel like I'm partially complicit because my tax dollars are going there to support those books going to the library. So my primary goal is to get those out of there. And I will read, because we like to talk, let's say vague discussions of these books. Here's a book in Rathdrum. It's called Changing You. It's displayed in the juvenile section, ages 0 through 11. It encourages innocent children to touch themselves and explore their bodies until they are ready to have sex. I'm not so sure that sounds appropriate to me for young children. I'll grab another book off the shelf here in Post Falls. It's called Deal With It. Graphic illustrations of sexual activities, sexual nudity. It contains profanity, abortion, commentary, alternate sexualities, controversy of religious and social commentary. I don't think those are the kind of books most parents are aware of. They're in the libraries, and I'm sure that the people that do know about it, most of them would object. So that is my motivation. My goal, again, is to clean up the children's, the minors area in the library. And I think that'll take care of the question. Thank you.
Sure. You have 1 minute.
Okay.
Wait, no, he doesn't get a rebuttal until he's part of the question. He's not part of that question.
Okay. Please hold your thought. You'll have a chance in just a second. I wanted to also alert everyone this event is being live streamed on the League of Women Voters of Kootenai County's website, and it's also being recorded and will be available there. So if you don't want to be on the internet, you should probably hide at this point. The next question is addressed to Ms. Meyer and Mr. Plass. What is your preparation, experience, and commitment to the administrative portion of this job? Budgets, personnel, policies, legal matters, and facilities? Mr. Plass.
So, what's my, the question is, what is my experience, or?
Preparation, experience, and commitment to the administrative portion.
Okay, so the big part that I fall back on is I ran my own business. I started it from scratch. I didn't borrow any money. I bootstrapped myself up. And at the end, I was negotiating contracts with fiber companies, facilities for my servers, facilities for rooftop equipment, mountaintops. I have been involved in negotiating contracts for businesses and working with everything from marketing to other corporations to do the installations or to provide their services. And I know from the business, to be successful, you have to be responsive to the customer. A lot of people misunderstand about business, but you aren't going to be successful if you just tell people what they have to do. So I am very keen in a position like this to listen to the community values, and I would make use of that experience. I've also been in the community for 26 years. I know a lot of people from my business, been in their homes. I know what they're expecting, and I will have to learn some things. I think there will be opportunity. I'll also have legal counsel available. Legal counsel will assist us with the legal decisions. I'm not going to pretend I'm a judge or a lawyer. So I will lean on the legal counsel and other experience to complete my position's duties.
Would you repeat the question?
Again, I've been a trustee in the library system since 1984. I bring a rich history of our library successes. Our library has grown from 1 to 7 branches. During that time, I've also been elected to the North Idaho College Board 5 times, appointed by the governor to the State Board of Education, and served as its president. Elected to the Blue Cross of Idaho Board of Directors, elected to the Kootenai Chamber, and many others. I've done senior management searches. I've done due diligence on candidates. I've evaluated auditors, plowed through innumerable paragraphs of goals and objectives, struggled with complex employee problems, written and rewritten annual plans, set and revised budgets, done performance reviews on senior management. I've listened to public feedback and tried to figure out compromises when different factions have different passionate differences. On the private side, I've been part of starting businesses, nurtured businesses through tough times, participated in large investment decisions, evaluated risk for new ventures, and been able to weather the peaks and valleys of economic cycles. I believe I have a strong history of management experience and skills to bring to the library district. We're now just completed employing a new district director, and I believe that public announcement has been made, but we look forward to having a new director join us in June to deal with the ongoing issues of what is the best combination of providing access to everybody in a balanced fashion. Folks who want to vote, folks who don't, how do we help them find the right way to do that?
Why are you reading your answers? They get the questions ahead of time. Why is she reading her answers?
Okay. The candidates are welcome to either speak extemporaneously or read
Did we
whatever
get the
material.
questions ahead of time?
No.
I didn't even have the questions before.
Okay,
that.
no clapping and no questions.
Please, no more interruptions. The next question is going to be addressed to Mr. Plass and Mr. Gray.
I know you may not understand that, but that's just the way it is.
Explain the library funding and how it impacts staffing. Are wages and benefits commensurate with living wages? And we'll start with Ms. McRae.
Okay, explain the library's funding, was that the question?
Yes.
And discuss the wages. Okay, predominantly the Community Library Network receives its funding from tax money. We also have grants. There are a number of different ways that the library receives its funds. We get a portion of sales tax, and the majority of the budget is about $6 million. We've heard the number 8 million thrown around, but that's only because we have to keep so much in reserves because the first tax payment doesn't come in until after the fiscal year already has started. And the bills don't wait, so you still have to pay for the operations of the ongoing library services. So out of our $6 million budget, the allocation for staff salaries is around 63%, I want to say, and our collection spending is around 9%. Both of those numbers are very low, actually, in comparison to other systems our size. And we would like to see both of those numbers increased. So we are, as library trustees, that's a very important part of what we do, is to set the budget each fiscal year. One of the reasons that we weren't able to get to some of the concerns about our material selection policy is because leading up to the summer, up until August when we have our budget hearing, we have to work through setting the budget, and it's very complicated. It has been stated in the mailers from my opponents that the library district has taken the maximum percentage increase over the last 3 fiscal years. That's absolute false. We have not taken the maximum increase allowed by law for the last 3 years. In fact, for fiscal year 2020, we took nothing. For fiscal year 2021, we took nothing. And for fiscal year 2022, we did raise it 2%. But the growth in the area and the valuation of homes had risen at that point in time, so most people's taxes went down, even though we did increase our funding by 2% that year. So it's very important to me as a trustee. I'm a taxpayer just like you. I want to know that the money is being spent wisely, but I will tell you it's a balancing act, and I do think our staff, we need to get our staff up to a living wage. The compensation study that we undertook in our district last year under the guidance of Amy Rhoda showed us that we are very, very out of whack, and a lot of our workers could make more just going to Spokane. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McRae. And Mr. Plass.
So I am one that has looked over the budgets. I don't have access for the last 6 years or even maybe 4 years, but I see what the county treasurer reports on what they collect and what they collect the next year, and that amount that's being collected doesn't match the budget. Maybe it goes higher, and then the budget can say, oh, we only went 0% or 1%, but the amount went up the previous year, the amount collected. So there's a discrepancy between the budget and the money they get. The budget, or the collection from the county tax recorder, shows that it went up 4% last year, even though they may have said they're only going to take 3% or something. I don't know why we have a $2 million reserve. What are we reserving it for? I don't understand why we should get tax increases at all when we have this kind of reserve. As far as living wage, why are the staff working there if they can go get another job? Why do we have to pay what somebody's survey says a living wage is? Everybody wants more money. If it's market-based, if they are getting a competitive pay package, I assume that's why they're there. They're happy. So the competitive or living wage is really a non-issue. It's market value. And I would be looking for anything to justify why we have such a big slush fund. I don't know if we're waiting to buy a new building. I don't know whether we're waiting to buy more books. I don't know what we're doing. But why do we have to fund a $2 million slush fund? And why do the collections from the county treasurer keep showing it goes up every year?
Well, as I,
Yes, she spoke, so she can do a
okay,
rebuttal.
you get to have a rebuttal.
Real quickly, I will try to keep it brief. It's not a slush fund. It's not a slush fund at all. If you've lived in this community for as many years as you say, it would have been helpful to come to one of our budget hearings. And if you had questions, you could have asked them. The capital reserve fund is so that the library is able to continue operating when the fiscal year starts, because the first tax payment doesn't come in until January or February, and the fiscal year starts in October. So if we didn't have that capital, if we didn't have the reserve, the library literally would not be able to pay a single bill that's coming in. So that is not a slush fund. It is not part of the budget. It is not used. It's there to get us through. And then lastly, why do we have to pay what we pay? Because we probably would get sued if we didn't. The reason we had the McGrath study done is to have a comprehensive look at our salaries to see whether or not we're in market. And you certainly don't want to subject this district to a lawsuit because we aren't paying market rate and looking at the broad categories across salaries and making sure we have parity and equality among our staff.
Okay, the next question is for Ms. McCray and Mr. Hanley. What is the role of the Idaho Commission for Libraries, and is there one thing you would like to see changed about it, and why? Mr. Hanley?
It's my understanding that the Library Commission for Libraries is it's under the administrative branch. Those folks on there are appointed by the governor. Again, it's my understanding of that, and that their primary job is to provide guidance to the libraries in the different taxing districts throughout Idaho. So they don't, to my knowledge, have any authoritative oversight of the library, but they do provide guidance, which is probably very helpful, especially during a transition. So, when I get elected into office, I'm going to need a little help, so I can look there, and they've got some guidelines and some items you can check off as to what you do when you go into office. But I don't think they have any again, solid ownership. Our job as trustees would be to answer to the electorate out there, to the people that put us in office. And that's the knowledge I don't have. And then I'm going to jump back on one other thing here. I'm going to introduce another book. We have a book in the Post Falls and in Rathdrum. In fact, we hold a couple books there, called Court of Thorns and Roses, and just a one-sentence description. Part of a highly explicit series with promiscuous main character. Sounds kind of unusual to me for young children or for minors to be reading. So again, these are the non-existent books in the areas for minors. I could throw another one out there, as a matter of fact. I have some time here. We have a book called Fade, that's in Post Falls, and it's also in Rathdrum. Sex trafficking rings of teachers, date raping students, sexual nudity, sexual activities including rape, profanity, and illegal drug use. So again, that's another one of these non-existent books that's appropriate according to the current board and should be available to your children and my children out there. Well, I don't have children, to be honest with you. I would love to have had children. It didn't happen, but I have neighbors, I have families, I have people in my church who do have children. I don't think those books belong out there. And I have a few more books I can read to you as we proceed today. Thank you.
Mr. McCray?
Sure, the Idaho Commission for Libraries, sorry, you're on the court, is like any other regulatory body or executive agency. You've all heard of commissions, and so we are beholden to the Idaho Commission for Libraries. It's like, I wish I could think of a really good example just off the fly. But the Industrial Commission, for example, that's a governmental entity. The Idaho, they can set rules and regulations. The Idaho Commission for Libraries does the exact same thing, and that's why I stated in my opening that our libraries have to meet the standards that the Idaho Commission for Libraries sets. And they have our governing and mission documents. So even though the Idaho, our community library network can adopt local policies that apply to our libraries, there are also standards that apply to all libraries in Idaho that must be implemented. If I could speak to some of these books that continue to be referenced, the library card for minors policy that went in, that we have passed and is in the process of being implemented, takes the teen section and reconfigures it to be appropriate for ages 13 to 15. If the book is for older teens and it has more mature content, those books are being moved to the adult section. So, and also if you want the kid card, that's for ages 0 to 12. And so if a child has the kid card, they're not going to be able to check out those books through the network that are available in Spokane or Liberty Lake, for example. So the restricted access means that you can control what your child is able to check out. And the books that I believe my opponent here is referencing, several, if not all, have already moved to the adult section. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. I have in my hand here a mailer I got recently, and in there it says M&M, I don't know if that's a trademark or not, but M&M implemented youth cards so parents can select access to age-appropriate books. You don't need to check a book out in order to read a book if you're in a library. Kids come out of school, parents drop the children off at the school. These books are sitting on the shelves, readily available to the children. This policy has not, going farther down here, they're committed to keeping obscenity out of the library. Well, why are we changing a policy if we don't have a problem out there? These books are not available to the children. So it's not accurate when you hear about these books not being available to children anymore. They're sitting on the shelves, they've been there, and if the policy ever does go into effect, it won't take place until July to get new cards out there. And then the books being relabeled and classified won't happen until next January at best. But the books are available to the children with or without this new policy.
The next series of questions are based on quotes from the Coeur d'Alene Press attributed to each of our 4 candidates. And I'm going to read the quote for each candidate and then ask the question. The first one is addressed to Judy Meyer. A group of people in this county are parading objectionable children and teen books around, reading them to audiences of adults and insinuating that they are from our libraries. In some cases, the quoted book is not from our library. In our collection of over 250,000 items in the last year, we have received 9 challenges, or 35 per million of our books. Ms. Meyer, please explain how you would implement your ideas if you are elected to another term.
Thank you. Am I there?
Yes.
Thank you. You're right that we all are concerned about what's in our library. We should be. That's why we're here today. We as trustees currently are working on that very issue. We have established a policy. It is in place. It is working. Books have been removed, not necessarily from the library, but from the category of age and adjusted, particularly the teenage books. And so those now have been moved from the young adult, the number is 10-13, into adult section. So that I think is in place and will be continuing. Along the way, if any of our users have concerns, we ask them to fill out the form that Regina has already mentioned to allow us to know what their concerns are. This is an emotional issue. It is not always portrayed in the accurate situation. Some of the books, like I say, we have now removed. Others are adjusted. They will be continue to be monitored. This is not limited to North Idaho. We see it as a national issue. The Clean Books for Kids website that's been referenced here is one that was not just local. It's a national group. You need to look at where the funding is and how connected it is to concerted national groups. There is much connection here that needs to be clarified as we talk about it.
And the answers, the next one is addressed to Mr. Plass. For the last 2 years, citizens have come forward with public comments informing the CLN trustees of the obscene and pornographic books being added to the youth shelves of our libraries. In meeting after meeting, testimony is presented to the trustees explaining in detail the material being promoted to the minors in our county, yet they do nothing. Please explain how you would implement your ideas if elected.
So yes, that is my quote. It's one that was accurate this time. A lot of them haven't been. A minor, just for definition, is under 18. I don't know where this 15 or 16 definition came from. A 16-year-old is not an adult. A minor has to be over 18. There's Idaho Code from 1972 that the legislature debated and worked out the details, very clear definition, and it's called the Idaho, or it's the dissemination of obscenity to minors. We need to follow that, maybe not in the library, but we should follow it, because when those books go off the premises, if somebody's under 18, they could be put in jail for, and if you gave a book to one of these books to somebody under 18, they could be put in jail for up to a year. We need to follow that in the library. And the 16 business has got to go. So what I would do is I would take any of the books that meet the definition of this that the legislature worked out in 1972. If they meet that definition, they go behind the counter, in a cabinet, in a closet, somewhere out of the area where minors cannot walk by and see them. They can't be allowed to be looking at these in the library. And I'm sorry, this 12-year-old card doesn't solve that. So that is what we would do. We would take those books, reclassify them for adult over 18. There's going to have to obviously be a change in the card, no more of the 16 stuff. And they would probably, I would have to say another policy I would change is, I would put warning labels on these books. Any book that gets taken out of the library, the patron that checked it out needs to know if you give it to a minor, you are subject to this Idaho code. This is not religion. This is not my morals. This is not my separation of church and state. This is Idaho code. It's very simple. If they can put somebody in jail for a year, it's pretty clear. Here's some books. Maybe Tom mentioned. This came from the Post Falls Library. You don't think we have sexual obscenity? It's got a Post Falls stamp on it. Here's a book from the Post Falls Library. I have the receipt that it was checked out. It talks about how to masturbate, how to do oral sex.
Time's up.
The next quote is from Ms. McCrae. This means ensuring all our libraries provide a broad range of materials and programs in support of the varied interests of their patrons. It means supporting librarians and staff in their service to our communities, as well as respecting the individual rights of all parents and educators in our community. Please explain how you would implement your ideas if elected.
Absolutely, thank you. Well, first of all, the Community Library Network does not acquire its books from adult bookstores, okay? We have the publishers from which we order from, there are certain publishers that the district has to order from so that the books are of quality to be widely circulated the way that they are. Again, going back to my opening statement, all means all. The library is a neutral ground, and it needs to have books and material that apply and are of interest to all Idahoans, regardless of your political or religious beliefs. So I'm just trying to organize my thoughts here to respond to some of the things are being bandied about. The kid cards will be available by January 1. So this idea that they're not going to, this is months and months and months away. The kid cards, the 0 through 12, will be available by January 1. And the reason it's January 1 is so that we can make very sure that if a family comes to get a kid card, that it's going to work appropriately and that their child's not going to be able to check out something that's from directed at a different age audience. We also have a kids in the library policy, which is basically if you're a young child, you are not to be wandering the library without an adult with you. So this idea that the children are aimlessly wandering and taking filthy books off the shelf is simply not accurate. Sorry, it's a little hard to keep my focus when there's some unruliness kind of happening in general. With respect to the 13 to 15 card, that one is coming in July. It will maybe be available before then, but the reason that it's taking longer for us to do that one is because it is a matter of recategorizing quite a few books in our young adult section. I'm sure I'm going to have more to say about this topic, but I'll reserve those remarks.
Thank you, Ms. McCray.
After everybody's finished.
Let us finish the final quote, and then I'll come back to you for a rebuttal. And this one is attributed to Tom Hanley. I am going to permanently remove the offensive books for minors from the library once and for all. Please explain how you would implement your ideas if elected.
Well, the quote is accurate. The quote is actually the one that was on another one of these cards out here. Anyway, it came in my mailbox. One part of the quote was from 2 months apart from the other quote, and they were put together as if it was one, but that's fine. I'm okay. They are things I've said. The book issue is resolved regarding children's books through policy. That's the board's job, is to make policy. I don't sit there picking and choosing the books. The librarian, the director, and his or her staff are the persons that are responsible for picking individual books. And the books that are not just available, as Regina said, these books are also promoted. They are put in front of the children's areas of the library. And my wife recently, 2 weeks ago, went into the library, and it was in the children's section, and then it was an 8.5 by 11 paper in red saying graphically sexual books. It was for available to adults, 5 feet away from the children's area. Something's wrong with that. We're luring them over there to kind of show them the ugly side of life there. So, I've got the rest of the question if you don't mind.
The rest of the question is, how would you implement your ideas if elected?
Well, I would work with the other members of the board. It's a 5-member board. I don't make decisions by myself. So it's an issue of making policies. We make a policy, and it will restrict the kind of books that we're going to be putting in for children. If there's something really wrong with that. And I'm going to take this opportunity, since I have a little bit more time here, to read you an excerpt from another book that is imaginary and belongs with our children in the library. If I can find my sheet here, it's a lengthy list. Here we go. Let's get another book out there. Let's see here. Emergency Contact. That book is in Hayden. The book is sexual activities, sexual nudity, drug and alcohol use, profanity, controversial race commentary, and hate involving racism. Not the kind of book I would want my children to be picking up off the shelves. I'm not sure what it's doing out there, and you paid for it. Thank you very much.
follow-up?
So who out here does not want to follow Idaho law? You raise your hand. Who? Does anyone not want to follow the law and have the library be compliant with it? There are numerous other books. I brought some here. Here's one called Identical. And this one was in the young adult fiction section, and it's been on display in the past, but here's a whole page. You can come up and look at these afterwards, but this is about daddy coming into his daughters after he's had some drinking, and he spends the time with his daughter, and the book is filled with, it's fiction. It's not instructional. The law gave an exemption to the libraries so they could have a adult encyclopedia article. Here's another one you can look at.
Okay, your time is up. Thank you, sir. We've reached the halfway point. I'm going to invite everyone to stand up and stretch for just a moment before we go into the second half. Please take your seats. Okay, take your seats and we'll continue with the questions. Okay. The next question is addressed to Ms. McCray and Mr. Hanley. What should the CLN policy be for library cards for minors? Oh, and this would be to Ms. McCray first.
Sure, thank you. Okay, back to the library card for minors policy, which we worked, as I said, in conjunction with a recruiter, someone that nationwide helps libraries establish policy. You know, you're being told that under Title 18 of Idaho Code, material that's deemed harmful to minors is in our library.
Excuse me, I'm going to interrupt. It's fine for you to display your signs from a stationary location, but please don't be parading about throughout the crowd. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Count against
I
yourself.
understand.
I'm trying to work with, in order to get the hearing back there, I need to turn one microphone off and another one on. I'm trying to work with that. And you'd be surprised how much sound a little bit of talking makes if it's in the room. So please, 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 make sure we get to continue hearing from these four candidates.
So whether a work is deemed harmful to minors ultimately is going to be for a court to decide. So when you excerpt, when you lift a passage out of a book and you just say this is obscene, the passage itself may be very offensive. The passage may be very offensive, but at the end of the day, the law looks at the book as a whole. And so you have to look at whether the book has any literary or educational merit. Now, I see people in the audience rolling their eyes at me, but I have to tell you, horrible things happen to children. Horrible things happen. These books are not glorifying what is happening. If you would read the entire book, it's not glorifying, it's not trying to teach our kids or desensitize our kids. So when you have to look at the book from its literary value and say, does this have any educational value? That depends. And if a court of law has deemed something obscene, then we absolutely don't have it in our library. But unless and until a court of law tells the library that a work is obscene, then librarians have to figure this out. And also, if the book has educational value, and educational value to adults or an 18-year-old, because this is a public library. This is not a school library. You can't restrict the age of the people entering this building. If the work has educational or literary value and you remove it, you have interfered with a parent's ability to educate their child, and that's found in another section of code. The government cannot interfere with parents' rights to educate their child in the way they want to educate their child. So if the library starts removing some of these books, we have interfered with some parents' ability to educate their child because maybe they have adopted a child who came from a broken home, who perhaps was molested or who was raped, and they don't know how to deal with that. And the library is at its core there to educate and inform. And so having books on these topics is valuable. It gives parents the words, and it helps people know what to say when they are in that situation. And that's why some of these horrible books, and I agree with you, some of these passages are horrible, but they have a purpose. Unfortunately, if we could get rid of rape, if we could stop rape, I'm in favor of that. Let's do that.
What should CLN policy be for library cards for minors?
Well, my understanding is a minor is someone who is below the age of 18. So I think there should be a card for minors and maybe a card for majors, we'll call them, seniors. So I think there are two. I don't think the law says something about 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds and young adults. You're either an adult or you're not an adult. And so we have no intention of looking right now at all whatsoever at adult books. We're looking at these books for children. And it seems as if we keep dancing around what the law might allow. We're not running a law office. We're running a library for the community out there and looking at the community values in the law out there within Kootenai County. And so, there might be some books with horrible, offensive things in it, or people may have gone through some, in very rare cases, very strange situations where certain books might be appropriate. Well, guess what? There's Barnes & Noble and there's Amazon out there who will be more than happy to sell you a book. We don't need to stick them in front of the children's face. So that's kind of let me see, okay, I think I'll read another book. I enjoy these. Let's talk about Fallout. That's in Pinehurst. That's out in the boonies, I guess. I've been out there already. And Rathdrum. That's what the two books are, where the books are. Sexual activities, sexual nudity, profanity, drug use, and alcohol use. That's something I think belongs in the children's hands in the minors area, but that's where it is. So because the law might allow something, doesn't say it's required to be in our libraries. It's just simply saying you got to get out of jail free card, and that's all. And it's a dated policy. And the legislature did do a job down in Boise this last session. The House and the Senate kicked it back and forth. It went to the governor's office. It got vetoed, and then it went back, and it only missed being passed by one vote. So it's going to be out there. It's going to be live again next session, more likely. I don't have any secret inside information. And my guess is it will pass because next year, I think, is an election year for those folks down there, and they're going to want to stay in their seats. So if it means protecting the children to keep their job, I guess that's what they're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanley. We're getting additional crosstalk, which is making it difficult for some people to hear, and it's also making me look bad. I don't want to get fired, so please keep your comments to yourself until the end, and then you'll have an opportunity to meet one-on-one with any of the candidates who wish to stay and talk to you. The next question is addressed to Ms. Meyer and Mr. Hanley. Does banning books protect freedom? How? Ms. Meyer?
You're asking me if banning books protects freedom. How does that work? If you don't have access to the books, you better understand what your freedoms are and your responsibilities. I just think that that is not the proper role of a library board to do. That means our library board needs to get together, all five of us, and understand what the contents are of our library. We've already discussed that. Many of these issues have already been addressed. We have a policy in place. We're trying to manage that. Policy is in place and has been for a while. It is not whimsical. It's going to take a while to complete implementation of the policy. That's all right too, because that's what libraries do. Thorough, complete, and also available for challenge if we already have a system that says if you don't think this book is correct, please fill out the form. The first question on that form is, have you read the book? We do have children's classics in the library. Part of that depends on what you think is a children's classic. We need to make available, it's our responsibility as a board to make available to the public lots of different kinds of books. Come in and see what we have. Don't take out the ones you don't want. Manage your children. I think that's the major issue that we have as libraries, is really, we've struggled with it as a board now. How do we help kids have a good experience in the library? How do we help families have a good experience in the library? And too often the children are dropped off. And as Regina commented, it is not our responsibility to manage their behavior. We will do the best we can, which is be sure if the books are in the adult section, children aren't over there, or they can't see them and reach them. That's different than when they're in the children's section. They are separate parts of the library in almost all of our libraries. We have 7 branches. Some of the libraries are smaller. That does make the library management closer, but that's because the library director and staff are there right with the folks, eager to help children find the right book. We just need to allow those books to be available and the public to make the choice. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. Mr. Hanley.
I remember the question this time.
Okay.
Does banning books protect freedom? I'm not so sure you've heard me talk about banning books so far. I'm talking about protecting children. In fact, I've been labeled several things here. I want to read these horrible things off here because I'm not supposed to say them. Authoritarian, book burner, book banner, censorship, extremist, and crazy. I think I'm a crazy as well. I saw that written out there. And a person who wants to prohibit free speech. I don't think that the protecting the children would be well described in terms of saying that these policies we're looking at doing, keeping the children safe in the libraries, is a bad thing to do. And so, I don't know, does anybody here want to have bad books given to their children? I don't think so. I'm looking around the place, finding out. And also, there is a challenge form if you don't like a book. It's my understanding that the challenge form goes to the same people who selected the book to start with. So it's kind of like the fox guarding the hen house. Doesn't seem to be probably a very effective way to do it. And so, and if these books really don't exist, I know they're also really so safe. These books I keep providing to you, the little summaries, are coming out of the children's areas, the minors areas, young adult areas of the library. So these aren't imaginary things. And so it can feel like we're dancing around these fantasy books here. Let's get another one here. The female of the species, as imposed clause, excessive, frequent profanity, sexual activities, violence, sexual nudity, underage alcohol use, drug use, and sexual assault. I'm not so sure that that would be appropriate for a child to pick up. I don't know why you're using our tax dollars to purchase those books. I find it rather appalling. And I think most people out there want common sense policies in here. We're not making laws, we make policies. We buy the books that we think uphold the community values. And so these are not the values that are being expressed to me. Thank you.
Ms. Meyer has a follow-up.
I think it's important that we all agree, we're concerned about the books too. Are you current on how many of our books have been reclassified? What I understand is many of them have been removed already or adjusted to the age group. I would also say the fact that we, as a board, hire the most trained librarians we can. Part of that is their ability to review public comments, to review the trade association journals, what they're reviewed as good books, bad books. Some are not considered by our staff because they know it wasn't fit in this community. I think it's unfair to say that it's up to the librarians only, because if you are not content with the request you've had in reconsideration, then the request can be requested again to come to the board. So there is a second round of assessment that can be done. And we as a board are happy to do that. We've only had that happen once or twice so far. So there's more that we as a board are ready to do, but we haven't heard from the public.
I'd like to go back to that. I think this is kind of one of those whack-a-mole games where you kind of whack one down and someone's going to pop up. You can go chase down a book to ask it to be challenged, and it goes through a lengthy process. I don't think how long it takes. And while that one book is being challenged and poured over again back by the Fox, several more have leaked into the library. They've been purchased again. So more books are coming in while we challenge one book that we want to get out. So I think it's a losing battle under the existing procedures and policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanley. The next question is for Mr. Plass and Ms. Meyer. Will you support the current meeting room policy of allowing meeting rooms to be reserved for non-commercial, nonprofit use with no other restrictions? Please explain why. Will you support the current meeting room policy of allowing meeting rooms to be reserved for non-commercial, nonprofit use with no other restrictions? Please explain why. Ms. Meyer.
Thank you. The use of meeting rooms is something we as a library think is an important community service that we provide. As you may already experience, it's really hard to find a place to have a gathering or a meeting, particularly after hours. And the library works with people on finding the time that they can use the room. We do have a policy that says you may use the room, that you may not sign up for it on a continuous basis because it denies other folks access. You sign up for one time. If you want to begin the next month or the next 6 months, you can sign up again and see whether or not it's available for you. I think our policy is an effort to reach out to small communities especially, because remember we have 7 branches, and that means that small communities can actually have a meeting in their community, like in Idaho, for whatever group wants to participate, and it's based on a sign-up process. Until we've had any comments that it doesn't work, we're continuing to use that policy.
Meyer, Mr. Plass.
So I don't see an issue with community rooms being used, especially during business hours. I don't know why we would pay a manager to be there after hours to keep it open unless we charge the users for that room. I don't know what the policy is. I have no problem with ham radio clubs coming in and using it, or book clubs using it. I do have a problem if the library starts to do something like this in the Idaho statutes that says, under harmful minors, the performance of obscene performances, the performance harmful to minors, no dancing, no shows, no Yeah, drag queen, let's say. So there's a limit, and I think we shouldn't, as taxpayers, should not be paying to hire a manager to work after hours. I don't know if we're doing that. We shouldn't be paying extra, if it's during regular hours, fine, and if it's regular community meetings, but I don't know why we would be paying for soup kitchens to be taught, or crock pot teaching. Are we buying crock pots to use that? I don't know what we're doing. I'll find out, but it's got to come under the regular budget for the regular operation. And while I'm talking on the Idaho statutes, I would also say, when I read through this, there is absolutely nothing in here about it's okay if it's cultural, or if it's okay if it's instructional. There's nothing about educational. There is nothing in this that says exceptions, except that at the end, the library gets a legal defense for having a human biology book, say, or something factual, but there's nothing in the Idaho statutes that say a book that's about a bathhouse with naked people in Japan, and that's what they do in Japan. Any bathhouse in any culture has naked people. There is nothing that allows that. Those books should not be here. And I intend, as I'm elected, just to treat this like this applies to the library. And then we don't get in trouble with these books leaving the premises with adults and the adults showing it to their kid. And we would be an accomplice, basically, to a violation.
Ms. Meyer has a follow-up.
Just to follow up on the community room. Those are available during community hours. We're not spending taxpayer money outside those hours. The community room is used often all day long for children's programs, for adult programs. This month here in Post Falls, we have a program about Mushroom Club. Folks are learning about that. It is, for me, it might be very educational because I want to be sure I choose the right mushroom. For others, it may not be, and so you don't attend. We have programs here on a book club, making stuff, watch party, evening of hope. All kinds of folks are using the community libraries, which are that, a community room for you to reserve and use. And I think it is a chance for educational opportunities. That's an important responsibility and role that libraries have.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. The next question is for Ms. McCrae and Mr. Hanley. What is your opinion of the Cooperative Information Network, CIN, sharing book collections with libraries, including and in addition to the CLN? Ms. McCrae?
Absolutely. So the Cooperative Information Network, when you go online and you are searching the catalog, you're actually searching CIN, which is the Cooperative Information Network. So you're going to get hits for books that happen to be within our network, but you can look and see specifically where the holding is. And so the benefit of CIN is it makes our processes very streamlined. For example, a lot of people in regards to this race didn't know if they lived in Coeur d'Alene that they weren't in our district. And the reason for that in large part is due to the Cooperative Information Network, CIN. And it's essentially interlibrary loan, but a little bit on steroids because we have courier service that delivers those books. So you can, if you want to get a book from the Coeur d'Alene Library, but you want to pick it up in Post Falls, that's very easy to do, and vice versa. So all of the members to the network, it pays for itself. CLN is a contributor, as is everyone that is part of that Cooperative Information Network. And when we did our strategic planning study over this last year, I believe we did that could have been 2021 or 2022, I'm not entirely sure. The data that came back from the public is they want more programs, more books. And so through CIN, we are able to offer the community more books than what would actually physically fit on the shelves. However, with that said, with the restricted access cards, those restricted access cards won't be able to check books out from a member library. They will only be able to check books out of the district libraries, because again, when we're putting that protection in place for 0 to 12 or ages 13 to 15, and again, those ages those ages guide where those books are in our collection. But if a parent wants to keep a 16-year-old on a teen card until they're 17, they can do that. So it's not any sort of limitation. It just helps the library be able to tell you what sort of books your child's going to be able to check out. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCray. Mr. Hanley?
It was my understanding that the new library card policy that will be going into effect eventually will restrict children from checking books out through the CIN. Maybe that's a good thing, meaning they can't get books from other places, other libraries that are outside the CLN. So that does put a little bit more control back into the hands of the parents. And I think it is a good extension and use of resources to have the CIN. The money, I mean, you got to buy books. Well, the CLN purchases books it has, but I think the CIN has about 20 or 25 other libraries outside of our own 7 that we bring books in and out from there. And I can't speak for my wife is an avid, voracious reader. She eats books up like crazy, and there's another, it's separate from the CIN, but the electronic access to books has been really helpful. I'm not here to burn down the libraries, by the way, in case there's some bad information out there, or blow it up. I'm here to take care of the libraries. But my wife happily, she doesn't like driving in the ice or snow. I kind of have fun. I enjoy it once in a while, I'll be honest with you, but except when I slide off the road. But anyway, it happened recently. In any case, she gets the books electronically, and so she can read 2 or 3 books electronically on her iPad, or whatever you call those readers she has. And the CIN is a good thing, and I believe the CLN pays for approximately 50% of the cost to run that operation. I want to jump back to a couple qualifications I'm bringing in here, by the way. When I mentioned to you logistics and supply chain management, we have books in the library, and it used to be inventory that I looked at, not books, but other things. So it is a very applicable skill and background I have. Financial management, I have budget, and there's budget approvals to be done here and back and forth. Well, if I've had financial management background, that should fit pretty nicely with this job here. The budget process has already started. I was an HR director once, and as last I checked, the library has people. They have, I think, 105 or 110 full-time equivalent out there of people. So I do have a background in that area, so I would consider myself rather qualified there. And then one of my other jobs I had, one of my last jobs, was facilities and fleet management. I had ownership over, I think it was 6 different buildings, spread all the way down from Lewiston out to Moses Lake, Coeur d'Alene here as well. And then vehicle-wise, I think I had 30, and the library has a couple of outreach vehicles, not nearly that many. So I almost consider myself overqualified for the job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanley. The next question is addressed to Mr. Hanley and Ms. Meyer. What is the specific duty of a library trustee to monitor books and to control which books are within a publicly funded library? Ms. Meyer?
And the question is, our role as a trustee? Our role as a trustee is to set policy. Our role as trustee is to hire the director, which we've just done. And our other role is to oversee the budget. For those of you who are confused about the budget, just go online and look at it. It's been there and will be, and it has been all along. This information is available. You can go to the library in your jammies because it's available 24/7, and we're glad to have you do that. I think that's an important part of what we, as a library board, set was policy. Access to the citizens. Take the library to the people. don't build just one building, build the 7 branches that we have around it. Take the bookmobile to the southern part of the state, southern part of our county area, where there is not a facility. Have a discovery bus. Set the policy that says there's a discovery bus. That takes all kinds of interesting activities, not only to young children, but to adults, and you'll again travel around the area. We were visiting Earth Day activities in Coeur d'Alene, where the discovery bus was, because it can go anywhere. And one of the activities they had was dissecting owl poop. Not the thing I was interested in, but boy, you should have seen the little kids all eager to dissect. And you can learn a lot from owl poop. So I would say that I think our goal as a library and trustees is to set the policy that will allow as much access to as many people as we can with accurate information. We need to hear from people who say, I need that information. And some of these books are difficult, they are painful, as Virginia said. Others have come to us and said, I needed that book. I had struggled with a situation, I didn't know what to do with it, I didn't know quite how to describe it, I didn't have words for it. This book helped me. That's what libraries are about.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. Mr. Hanley? What is the specific duty of a library trustee to monitor books and to control which books are within a publicly funded library?
Okay, I believe the trustees, their job is to use resources wisely, taxpayer funds. It's about 93% of the budget, the money coming in to run the library comes from people's property taxes. And so that's, a thing where we're all involved in that, and we want to make sure our dollars are spent wisely. Let's see, I wanted to jump back to another different subject, by the way, if you don't mind. Is that cool? It is my time.
It's yours.
Let me go back to the job of the trustees. So their job is obviously to set the budget, assist with the budget, to come up with the policies for running the library, and these things. A little bit of community outreach in terms of answering questions from the public occasionally. And I missed one of them, but there were at least 3 major ones. But when it comes to policies, certain books out there are probably appropriate only for certain ages. My wife relayed a story to me once. It was regarding the movie. She and her younger sister at the time, I think she was 2 years younger than her, and they watched The Wizard of Oz. And for months, if not years, they were rather traumatized looking for flying monkeys. It was, and that's a kind of a little thing. If something goes on like that, and it traumatized the kid, and there are books on these shelves that are sitting there, and the children are not ready for the material in these books, and they're traumatized by it. And so that's the reason why we're looking at these books being inappropriate for children, and keep beating that one to death. But that is the elephant in the room. That's why probably a lot of people are here. Some books are okay in the library. We're not going after the adult books. We're going after saving the children. So I believe that's my full response. Thank you.
The next question is addressed to Mr. Plass and Ms. McRae. If books begin to be pulled indiscriminately, will the insurer, the Idaho County's Risk Management Program, or ICRIM, be responsible to settle claims? Will the building, property, and liability insurance be in jeopardy as a result of claims made and or paid? And Ms. McRae?
Great question. Something I wanted to go back to because I think it was mentioned that perhaps we're running a law office. We're obviously not running a law office. Private institutions can do whatever they want. This is a government-run building, and as a result, it must comport with the First Amendment. And the First Amendment applies here in particular. So absolutely, it gives me great concern to think that we're going to indiscriminately go in and start pulling books off the shelf. When the book has entered the library, to have it removed, it has to be done a certain way and through a certain process, and it can't be based on content or viewpoint discrimination. So a lot of what has come at the board in large part relates back to content or viewpoint discrimination. So that is different than trying to make sure that the collections are age appropriate. We're 100% in favor of that. But what I think I keep hearing, because he keeps saying it, what I keep hearing Mr. Hanley saying is he doesn't want, or both of these gentlemen actually, anything that could potentially be harmful to minors being housed in a public library, and that is just unworkable. It's unworkable for a public library, and it would subject us to being sued. If you want to put these books back in the janitor's closet, what you're doing is you're burdening that speech. You're chilling that expression, and you're requiring the patron that's coming into the library to have to ask for it, like they're, doing something that they ought not be doing. So, you can shake your heads at me and you can be mad, but I'm just trying to explain to you the reason the First Amendment is there is to protect everyone's right and freedoms and access to information. And we want we want children and teens to be able to freely and voluntarily explore diverse topics. All members of the public should have the ability to come into the library and voluntarily explore topics. They shouldn't have to ask for books that are behind a counter. So the First Amendment matters, and it matters a great deal in this election. So I will very quickly touch upon the question about insurance. The library system does get its insurance with ICRIMP, the Idaho County's Risk Management Program. If claims come in and we are subjected to claims, attorney's fees, payouts, what have you, our rates are absolutely going to go up if we're not dropped entirely.
Thank you, Ms. McCray. Mr. Plass.
So the question seems to misunderstand what we've stated. We are not removing a single book from the library. ICRIMP shouldn't have an issue if we reclassify them to over 18 and get them out of the young adults and minors area. That's all we're doing. We're not trying to remove books from the library. So I don't think ICRIMP will have anything to say about it. The other is, why would ICRIMP be concerned if we're following the Idaho statutes? It's very clear. They go through and they talk about nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, sadomasochistic abuse, different things, masturbation. It's all in here. They've gone in great detail. And these books violate that intent. So I don't know why ICRIMP would, if we put them in the adult section, why ICRIMP would be the least bit concerned. As far as the First Amendment, the Supreme Court has gone through this, numerous cases. They have made it clear there is a compelling interest for protecting minors from harmful materials. Various cases have already made that clear. Minors don't have the same constitutional rights as adults. So we don't cater to minors. We cater to protecting them, but we don't give them the same freedom that you give adults. And the Supreme Court has also said it's okay for a library policy to be crafted to protect minors and if it doesn't infringe on the rights of adults. We are not getting rid of books. Please, make sure you understand that when you leave today. We're taking the books and we're going to move them out of there. We're going to put them behind the counter in a cabinet and closet someplace where the kids can't get to them. And adults can still get them. And they will be classified for over 18. And I would also say, one other thing, the Idaho statutes, the preamble of it makes it clear that they're doing this to protect children. The American College of Pediatricians came out with a statement a couple of years ago, and just a couple things. These are medical doctors. Consumption of pornography is associated with a negative emotional, psychological, and physical health outcomes. These include increased rates of depression, anxiety, acting out, violent behavior, younger age of sexual debut, sexual promiscuity, increased teen pregnancy, and a distorted view of relationships between men and women.
Time's up.
The next question is addressed to Ms. Meyer and Mr. Hanley. What community achievements, experiences, or particular skills have prepared you to serve as a regional library trustee? Mr. Hanley.
So I think I sort of covered that in the 4 different major categories of places and things I've done in my career. Again, a couple of those things. I mean, I'll go back. It's like I can't remember myself because I do so many incredibly good things. I'll skip it, but it's under the financial management, fiscal, facilities management, and so forth. But I also couple that with the fact I do have a business degree, so I can look at how to run an operation that's not exactly foreign to me. And I also have a graduate degree. So I forgot the rest of the question, to be honest with you. I'm sorry. I should have
What community achievements, experiences, or particular skills?
Okay, well, beyond that, I'm going to jump on the community things I'm doing. I did serve my country, as I told you, for 30 years. After that, I did work and served in a nonprofit. I did get paid for that, but still. And that was a local, it was a Red Cross equivalent, we'll call it. It used to be called the Inland Northwest Blood Center, now called Vitalent. So my current community involvement there is I still donate platelets, and where you can donate blood if you wish. These things are interesting. When you work there, you find out they don't manufacture platelets or blood in a basement someplace. It comes out of people, and so I still do that. I usher at my church, and then as far as other community involvement, for the last 2 or 3 months, my full-time job has been a trustee candidate, running around talking to people and asking them and listening to what they want in their libraries. I can tell you what they don't want, and it's a sad story. The Handsome Girl and Her Beautiful Boy. That book is in Hayden. Alternate gender ideologies, alternative sexualities, explicit frequent profanity, sexual activities, sexual nudity, alcohol use, controversial social, political, and religious commentary. And I will jump over to the religious side too. I'll skip that. We'll go back to the First Amendment. There are restrictions. We'll say that the courts have looked well upon restrictions and so forth regarding children and protecting children. But we already in our society here restrict minor access to other things. They can't go out and drink. They can't even buy alcohol. They can't buy cigarettes, the current mortal sin to have a doggone cigarette, but still they can't do that. They can't buy guns. They can't vote for me, unfortunately. And they can't buy, so there are existing restrictions and guidelines and care taken for the children that are out there. And there's no reason why we can't do that same thing here in the libraries.
Ms. Meyer, community achievements, experiences, or particular skills?
Thank you. I told you earlier I've been elected to boards in this community and served well. I'm particularly concerned now about what's happening at Idaho College. I think that represents a challenge that is affecting our community economically, certainly affecting the students, the very thing that we all work for. And that was to be sure they had access at cost-effective rates. That's always a challenge, but that's the same thing we do with libraries. You help buy the library, we want you to come and use it. It has wonderful programs and check out items, not just books and materials. We've got a things library, a things section, and an it section, where if you want to check out a sewing machine because you want to try it out, you want to check out Binox because you want to try out Binox and Virgin Book, we have packages and those kinds of things. I like that outreach that we have done as a community from our board saying, these are new areas that our library can provide access for you for information. We want to make sure that information is correct. I think that sometimes as we hear some of these passages from books, we need to put that in better context. We too want to protect our citizens, all of them, all ages. That's why we have a new policy. I'm proud to be part of a community that is caring enough now that you'll have a real choice as this election comes along, for how much do you want your community library board to manage what you have access to, compared to what you think you have a right to, and that you get to choose. You help your children, or you help your senior citizens, where we now deliver books to the senior centers and help them have access, because access to information is vital to the future of our community.
The last round of questions is going to be addressed to all four of the candidates, and it concerns some of your campaign signs. I'm going to start with Mr. Plass. Some of your campaign signs read, "Save our children." Please tell us what you are trying to convey with this message.
I think you might have mixed up which is on my sign. My signs say "Restore our libraries." Is that possible? Was it a mix-up? Okay. Anyway, my sign says "Restore our libraries." And what I mean by that is not only get them cleaned out of this material, that's the removal part or the relocation, but the restore is to bring back classics or classic literature that has systematically been removed over the last 10 years. We've gone through and compared the CLN collection with other libraries such as St. Mary's or one in Plummer, or there's a group of these independent ones. These independent communities have not been touched by the management of the trustees here. They've been free to stay the way they want. Pollyanna, who in their childhood didn't read Pollyanna? We've got one book in all 7 libraries of this. The other ones have 25. We've got lots of books here. Bedknobs and Broomsticks. There's 0 in the Community Library Network. I've got a whole stack of these books you can look at. We've researched some. Tom Swift, 0 in our libraries, 13 in the other libraries. We want to bring back classic books, because there's going to be some empty shelf space when we get elected. We're going to bring back classic books. Some of these are out of print, but not all of them. And we're going to bring them back because this is what people want. People, we need to make our libraries serve what people want. So we're going to base it on community standards. So community standards would be things like the survey that the library board conducted last summer, where they had input from the public. And there were dozens of comments saying they didn't want pornographic and obscene books. But they were that survey, that information was ignored. So we need to go on community standards. There was a survey done by the Idaho Family Policy Center. 74%, this is statewide, 74% of Idahoans do not want pornographic material in their public libraries. We need to listen to this. Everyone has internet on their phone. Do we really need to provide this much internet? Maybe 1 or 2 computers or something, but I think we can cut back. It's not like it is in the 90s where no one had internet. So we need to review the policies.
Ms. Meyer, I'm told that some of your campaign signs read, "Protect our children." Please tell us what you were trying to convey with this message.
I think you heard it before. We all agree we want to protect our children. The things we're doing in the library district is to be sure that we have in place the right policies for our children. We've instituted, as you heard before, a new policy to address age groups and age appropriateness. We still have the issue that parents are responsible for a minor card until the age of 18. And we have addressed that by having different age groups. We've addressed it by saying, parents, please come in We've addressed it by having our librarians well-trained and eager to work with students and families and parents at any time when the library is open. We as a library have looked at some of these books. I would say that internet access is still very important to our patrons, because in the rural areas of the state, of the county, it is difficult for still to have internet access. It's getting better, that's the way it should go. How do people, when they're on the internet, understand and value what that information is? Is it accurate? How do you know? Libraries are a place where you can find that out. You will learn that the accurate information is in the library. There may be various versions of it, but it is accurate. That's our goal as a library, and my role in protecting not just children, anybody that uses the library. We also find that we do have classes in the library. If they aren't checked out, part of our management, fiscal management, is if they're not used, do they pay their rent on the shelf? And so we look at it that way. Remember, we can also interlibrary loan. So if there's a book you want that we don't happen to have, between our courier service delivering it from amongst our own libraries, or internet library loaning it from anywhere in the country, we can get that book for you. But if it's not heavily used, why would we take up space for that when we have other books that are in more demand that people want to use and have access to? Then we do that. Our library collection is based on 25% of the books being checked out all the time. If they were all turned in, there wouldn't be room on the shelves. That's how we want to have a library. That's always being used, not just books and materials, but programs. There's just much more excitement ahead, and I look forward to serving you to make that delivery happen.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. Mr. Hanley, I am told that your sign says restore our libraries, although Mr. Plass says that's his sign. If that is in fact your sign, would you tell us what you're trying to convey with that message?
Well, I'm not going to convey the message because that's not what's on my sign. I think my sign says save the children, or protect the children, I think. I can't remember anymore. Whatever I wrote on my slogan was interesting. I wrote that back in January or February and put that on literature that went out all over the place around the county. And later on, I see these really big 4x8 signs. I don't think Judy put those in herself, by the way. I put all my own signs up, the ones that are there, and some of them are disappearing, to be honest with you. But the saying on their sign now is the same as mine. And so I had in my closing statement here, by the way, I'm going to jump just my opening sentence. I find it deceitful that the incumbents are using campaign slogans such as save our libraries and protect our children, unless what they really mean is to save the libraries and protect their children from them. Let me see what else I had here for you on that one there. I believe that's it. I'll read you another story. I like these here. Strange Truth. That's a book carried here in Post Falls. Alternate sexualities, profanity, suicide commentary, violence, sexual activities, sexual nudity, alcohol and drug use, and controversial racial commentary. That's the kind of book that the incumbents are putting on the shelves for your children. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanley. Ms. McCrae, some of your campaign signs say saveourlibraries.net. Please tell us what you're trying to convey with this message.
Sure. It's a huge concern to me, just the future that our libraries may be facing. We are in the national news, we're in the national spotlight, I think, because of this controversy regarding the books. But let me tell you, the books on the Clean Books for Kids list, the CLN has about 1,000 copies of the books that are on that list, and our collection has 253,000 books in it. So that is less than 0.4% of the collection. If you want to look at it from just the statistical approach of what's in young adult and children, if you just look at the numbers from young adult and children, you're still under 1% of the entire collection. So I guess what I kind of find concerning is this entire campaign platform of our opponents is in regards to cleaning up the library, but the vast majority of what is on the shelves in our library is not what's on, it's not in controversy here, okay? So we're talking about less than 1% or less than 0.4% of the entire collection. So the libraries are doing a good job. They are safe spaces for our community. They are a community center. They are healthy. In December 2019, before the pandemic, we had 348 people come out to a frozen program at the Post Falls Library. I think the community loves our libraries. They love our staff. Our staff are caring and kind, and I want to see that continue. And I am worried that if my opponents are elected, they will cancel programs, or they will take the books off the shelf, so to speak, and they will do things that cause either staff to leave or for lawsuits to happen. And I think that that does threaten the very system that a lot of us rely upon as far as getting books and programs. So again, the slogan, Save Our Libraries, is that they're a community resource, and we want them to continue to be available and vibrant, available for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCray. Do any of you wish to follow up?
I would like to follow up, as you talked about campaign signs and material that's being mailed out. I'm very troubled by a postcard that just arrived in, I think, many of your mailboxes that is talking about the library election, but it doesn't tell us who sent the card. That is against the law. You must identify the source of who paid for this. Can you gentlemen help us with that? Sure.
I was looking, I heard, hello? I heard about that piece of literature that came out yesterday. I received a text. I have no idea. It's very much in favor of us, myself. Thank you. It talks about caring about our future of our communities, and taking a moment to read this, and it talks about things here. So I don't know the source. I don't want to investigate it. That's somebody else's job. The only thing I want to do is probably send them a thank you card when the election's over. Thank you.
I could just say that on that card, we know absolutely nothing about it, and in fact, they misquoted me. This was not my quote. I did not say, protect our children from obscene pornographic materials by removing them from our libraries. My card says, protect children from pornographic materials in our libraries. It doesn't say anything about removing them from our libraries. Somebody's trying to twist my message, and it wasn't me.
Okay, that concludes the question portion of our program. If any of the trustee candidates have the time to remain and talk informally with any of the members of the audience, you may do so. I want to thank Michael, our excellent sound engineer, Lisa Schaff, our timekeeper, and the whole League of Women Voters of Kootenai County organization for sponsoring this event, and the American Legion for allowing us to hold it here. Give the entire group of 4 candidates a big round of applause.
And I think we need to thank our moderator as well.
Yes.
Yeah.